But it's not only scientists that don't think that politicians will come to right solutions who are interested in geoengineering. We call this the ABCD plan on geoengineering, because scientists are speaking on a plan B, like an emergency. If we can't do anything else, then we should use geoengineering. It's what some scientists are saying, like Paul Crutzen. But then we have the plan A, which is a lot of people that are already interested in the commercial aspects of this, and are speaking that we don't really. It's like the American Enterprise Institute and Bjorn Lomborg in Denmark. Is the people that has been denying climate change for the past 35 years, and they say, well, we have a problem with climate change, but we really don't need to reduce anything or to change anything in the patterns of consumption or production. What we need is to go to something that can reverse the effects of this. And they also, they are some of these people. For them, geoengineering is a plan A, because it's very convenient. They say, even for politicians, they don't need to have impopular policies like going to the voters and say we need to make reductions here and there or change any kind of production or something. We can just reverse what we done. We can continue polluting and emitting gases and then reverse. This is the plan A. There are many of them. Don't believe this is a joke. There are many. Then we have the plan B I already mentioned. The plan C is commerce. And we have here in San Francisco particularly one company called Plymouth, which is for ocean fertilization as a carbon credit commerce. They are thinking, okay, we fertilize the ocean, and then people, individuals or companies, whoever can pay to us, and we put more iron or urea or whatever in the oceans, and because we are absorbing carbon dioxide, we can have carbon credits on this. And it's a coalition of organizations, but we got the United Nations through the Convention on Biological Diversity to have a moratorium on any kind of ocean fertilization with a small window for research. And Plymouth is still, they changed their aim of selling carbon credits just as a pure commercial activity, and they are saying that they are doing research. It's like the whale moratorium is very similar to that. So we are doing research, we are going to the research. Anyway, there is a moratorium on this. And then we have what we call the Plan D, which is DARPA, which is the Army is really interested in modifying the weather. They have been interested in it, particularly US Army, but also others, are researching into controlling the weather. Is a weapon, I mean, in itself. There is now unclassified documents that show that the US Army used weather modification in Vietnam during the Vietnam War and made that it was, raining for many months. So this is not new for the Army. And all the proposals of geoengineering, they are already a way of justifying that this can be used for other purposes, but nobody can control that this is not going to use also as a weapon. Okay, so what's the problem we see with this? We see a lot of problems with this, both with this meeting that is happening, it was happened last week in Asilomar, it ended today, but also with the very issue of geoengineering. In the first place, as I already mentioned, we see this as a perfect excuse. I mean, we don't need to really go to the causes and the problems that climate change is provoking, and we can use a kind of, what is called an emergency solution. But who defines the emergency? Who defines when is the time to use it, and this kind of things. So that's the first problem. Then I put two examples here. Did we have this brochure, the brochure of the Retooling the Planet? Do we have it? I
just thought to left them over here.
Okay, because you can get one of those, and it's good because you will see many of these examples in much more detail. and other proposals and so. But for instance, this about fertilizing the oceans, it was a moratorium in the Convention on Biological Diversity because it was a lot of disruption on the ocean and marine life. But last week, it was also a research done on ocean fertilization that it was published in the Proceeding of National Academy of Science in the middle of March. And they found that when you fertilize, artificially fertilize the ocean and make the plankton grow rapidly, you are also favoring that a lot of toxic plankton grows at the same time. Not a lot, but enough to be poisonous for shellfish, for fish, and for people that consumes this. So this is, for instance, one of the latest issues that came. But also, for instance, on aerosols in the stratosphere, there is a well-known meteorologist called Alan Robock that was analyzing the proposals, and he says the first thing is that there is not the possibility of making experiments on geoengineering in a small scale, because it is a contradiction in itself. Why? Because for the climate to take notice, it has to be large scale. And he says, for instance, on aerosols in the stratosphere, if you are not injecting them for enough long time, you won't be able to differentiate what is caused by the experiment or what is called what he defines as climate noise, which is the normal variations of climate. So there is no middle step. Either you are in your lab making mathematical models, or you are out and deploying geoengineering. It's the same. It's more or less the same with many of the other experiments. It's different, but basically this is a big problem with geoengineering. So he says, for instance, okay, Mount Pinatubo, it lowered the temperature, but volcanic eruption, they have a lot of other problems. For instance, they contribute to the acidification of seas, which is a big problem, and it's also related to climate change. It contributes, and this is even worse, well, in a way, it contributes to enlarge the ozone layer hole if you put more sulfurs in the stratosphere. And it is already, when it comes down, because at some moment it has to come down, what you can be, poisoning sea life and even cause the premature death of at least 500,000 people. The proposal of this, the first proposal of this, when he was confronted with this figure, Paul Crutzen, this Nobel laureate, he said, well, a lot of people will die for climate change too, so at least we are trying to do something, But he knows that it could imply the premature death of 500,000 people in the scale it was planned. This Alan Robock, he said in an article in Science in January 2010, he analyzed this, and he also said, okay, when you put this large sun J, what happens is that the precipitation, the rain and the rains and the winds patterns will change, and this will immediately affect the monsoons in Asia and the winds in Africa, and this will directly impact on the food and water supply for 2 billion people in Asia and Africa. And this is even if you do this in the Arctic. In fact, it is if you do it in the Arctic. And the idea is to do it in the north, because all the people working on this are either companies or scientists from rich country governments, and they are to lower the temperature in the north. This is also true if you see in the different models. So there is also a north-south here where, okay, a lot of scientists and companies with the money and the resources and the technology to make experiments on the climate in the north, but the worst impacts probably will be on the south.